There is a rule inside Buckingham Palace that almost nobody talks about. It is not written in any official document. It is not part of any constitutional arrangement. But every single member of the royal family knows it, and for decades they have lived by it. The rule is simple. What happens inside these walls stays inside these walls. Scandals get buried, decisions get rewritten, and the people who witness the truth, they stay quiet, because the survival of the monarchy depends on it. For 20 years, Princess Anne followed that rule. She watched, she waited, she stayed loyal to her mother, to the crown, to an institution she has dedicated her entire life to protecting. But something has changed. Because according to sources now circling the royal commentary world, Princess Anne's inner circle has begun allowing information to surface, quietly, carefully, deliberately, and the information being whispered about, the decisions Charles allegedly made behind closed doors 2 decades ago, could shake this monarchy to its very foundation. Camilla's family, it is being reported, is in panic, and King Charles, for the first time in his reign, he may have no way out. Stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through is the most significant royal power shift in a generation, and it is happening right now, in real time, behind the walls of Buckingham Palace. In this video, I am going to break down 3 things. First, who Princess Anne really is behind the public image, and why her silence over the past 2 decades has been far more powerful than anyone realized. Second, what decisions King Charles allegedly made in the early 2000s that are now, according to royal insiders, becoming impossible to keep hidden. And third, what all of this means for Camilla, for the future of the monarchy, and for the extraordinary power struggle that royal watchers believe is now fully underway inside the palace. This is not just gossip. This is a story about power, loyalty, and what happens when the most disciplined woman in the royal family decides she has had enough. Let's get into it. To understand what is happening right now, you first need to understand Princess Anne, because most people look at her and see the hard-working royal, the one who shows up to every engagement without complaint, the one who never chases headlines, never courts controversy, never gives the tabloids what they want. And all of that is true, but it is only half the picture. What royal insiders have described for years quietly in hushed tones is a woman of extraordinary strategic intelligence, a woman who has watched every single chapter of this family's modern story unfold from the inside, a woman who, according to multiple royal commentators, has a memory like a steel trap and a sense of institutional loyalty that runs bone deep. Anne was born in 1950. She grew up in a royal family that was still finding its footing in the modern world. She watched her father, Prince Philip, navigate the impossible position of being a powerful man perpetually required to walk 2 steps behind his wife. She watched her brother Charles fall apart publicly, the divorce from Diana, the Camilla affair, the years of scandal that nearly broke the monarchy entirely. And through all of it, Anne said almost nothing publicly. She kept working, she kept showing up, and she kept watching. Royal author Christopher Anderson has described Anne as someone who represents everything the monarchy is supposed to stand for: hard work and respect. But what Anderson and others have also noted is that Anne's respect for the institution does not mean blind loyalty to every decision made within it. Because here is the thing about Princess Anne that most people miss. She has opinions, strong ones, and when she disagrees with something, when she believes a decision is wrong or dangerous or damaging to the crown, she says so. But inside those walls, behind those closed doors, to the people who need to hear it. And right now, according to multiple royal sources, Anne is saying something that Charles does not want anyone else to hear. Let me take you back to the early 2000s. Charles and Camilla's relationship had been an open secret for years. The public knew, the family knew, and Queen Elizabeth, whatever her private feelings, had made a quiet, painful peace with the situation. But the question of how Camilla would be formally brought into the royal family was far from settled. There were legal considerations, there were financial arrangements, there were conversations, deeply private conversations, about titles, about properties, about the long-term position of Camilla's children within the royal structure. And here is what royal commentators are now beginning to ask out loud. Were all of those conversations conducted transparently? Were all of the people who should have been consulted actually consulted? Or did Charles, under pressure, in love, and determined to secure Camilla's future, make decisions that were never fully disclosed to the wider family? Because if sources are to be believed, Princess Anne was present for some of those conversations, and what she reportedly witnessed, the promises made, the arrangements agreed to, the parts of the story that never made it into any official palace statement, is what is now allegedly beginning to surface. Now, I want to be careful here because these are unverified claims circulating in royal commentary circles. The palace has said nothing. Anne's representatives have said nothing publicly. But the pattern of behavior we are seeing from Anne right now makes this speculation feel less like rumor and more like the early stages of something very significant. Think about what we know for certain. In October 2025, King Charles made the unprecedented decision to strip his brother Andrew of his prince title, a move that sent shockwaves through the family. And who pushed back the hardest? According to the Daily Mail, it was Anne. She was, quote, vocal with both the King and William about Andrew's treatment. That is not a small thing. That is Princess Anne, the most disciplined, most institutionally loyal member of this family, openly challenging the King's decision, not just to staff, not just to courtiers, but to Charles himself and to William. And sources say Edward backed her. Now ask yourself, why would Anne, who has spent her entire life avoiding public confrontation, choose this moment to become vocal? Why now? Why, at precisely the moment when Charles is at his most vulnerable, health failing, the Andrew scandal spiraling, the monarchy under unprecedented scrutiny, why does Anne decide to start pushing back? Because according to royal watchers, it is not just about Andrew. Andrew is the visible argument, but underneath it, allegedly, is something much older, a grievance that has been building for 2 decades, a question about decisions that were made and never properly accounted for at the very highest level of this family. And if Anne's legal circle is now quietly reviewing those decisions, the implications are extraordinary. Now let's talk about Camilla, and more specifically her family, because here is something that rarely gets discussed in royal coverage. When Camilla married Charles in 2005, she didn't just enter the royal family herself. Her entire extended circle, her children, her family connections, her former husband's network, all of them moved in various ways into the orbit of the palace. Royal estates, charitable foundations, social access, financial arrangements. None of this is unusual in royal circles. But what is unusual, and what royal commentators are beginning to flag, is the degree to which Camilla's position as Queen Consort has provided a kind of protective umbrella for the people around her. An umbrella that, if the whispers about Anne's legal circle are true, may be about to face its most serious challenge. Think about the position Camilla's family is now in. Everything they have, every piece of access, every social position, every financial arrangement that connects them to the palace rests on the stability of Camilla's position. And Camilla's position, in turn, rests on the decisions Charles made in those private conversations 20 years ago. If those decisions are now being scrutinized, if the documents, the agreements, the promises, the arrangements are being reviewed by legal minds connected to Princess Anne, then for the first time in 2 decades, the people around Camilla have something to be genuinely worried about. And according to sources in the royal commentary world, worried is exactly what they are. Now, would Anne actually move to formally challenge Camilla's position? That is the question every royal watcher is asking right now. And honestly, I don't think that is quite the right question, because I don't think this is about destroying Camilla. I think this is about leverage. I think this is about a woman who has watched this family make decision after decision without proper consultation, and who has finally decided that she has enough information and enough legal backing to demand that things change. That is a very different kind of power move. And in some ways, it is far more dangerous than an open confrontation. Let's talk about where Charles is right now, because the timing of all of this matters enormously. King Charles is not well. That is not speculation, it is publicly confirmed. He has been undergoing cancer treatment, and while the palace has described his condition as moving into a precautionary phase, royal experts have been far less reassuring in their private assessments. Royal expert Richard Fitzwilliams has noted that the pressures on King Charles are intense, and that was before the full weight of the Andrew scandal, the questions about succession, and now the whispers about Anne's legal circle began to accumulate. At a state banquet in March 2026, eyewitnesses described Charles looking small, frail, and exhausted, while William and Kate commanded the room with confidence. The contrast, according to insiders, was impossible to ignore. A king who is physically weakened, politically pressured, and now, allegedly, facing questions about decisions he made 20 years ago, is a king in a uniquely vulnerable position. And here is what makes this so significant. Charles cannot simply shut this down. He cannot call Anne into a room and make it go away with a private conversation, because if legal minds are now involved, the conversation has moved beyond the family level. It has moved into territory where palace PR cannot reach it. He cannot discredit Anne because Anne is, by every measure, the most respected and trusted member of the working royal family. The British public would not accept it. The institution could not survive it. And he cannot ignore it because whatever is allegedly being reviewed, it did not surface by accident. Princess Anne does not do anything by accident. So what is Charles's move? Honestly, and this is purely my read of the situation, I think he is hoping this stays quiet. I think the palace machine is working overtime right now to ensure that whatever is circulating in Anne's legal circle does not reach the public in any verifiable form. But here is the problem with that strategy. It depends entirely on Anne's cooperation, and Anne, for the first time in 20 years, appears to have stopped cooperating. Let me tell you what I genuinely believe is happening here. I think Princess Anne has made a calculated decision, not an emotional one. Anne doesn't do emotional. A calculated, strategic, perfectly timed decision to let certain information breathe, to allow certain questions to be asked, to signal clearly, unmistakably, that she knows things and that she is no longer prepared to simply absorb them in silence. Is she going to blow the monarchy up? No, that is not who Anne is. She loves this institution too much. But is she going to use what she knows to reshape the balance of power inside that institution, to demand greater transparency, to ensure that the decisions being made about the family's future are made properly with the right people consulted? I absolutely believe she is. And that, in many ways, is more consequential than any public scandal, because it means the monarchy is about to change, not from the outside, from the press or the public, but from the inside. From the one woman Charles cannot afford to fight, cannot afford to ignore, and cannot afford to lose. Camilla's family is right to be watching closely, because when Princess Anne decides it is time for things to change, in this family's history, things change. The only question is how. 20 years of silence, 20 years of watching, waiting, and absorbing, and now, if what royal insiders are suggesting is true, Princess Anne may finally be making her move. Whatever happens next inside Buckingham Palace, one thing is certain: the balance of power inside the world's most famous family is shifting, and the woman at the center of that shift is the one who has always been the most underestimated. Never underestimate Anne. I will be following every development on this story and bringing you the analysis as it unfolds. If you want to stay ahead of what is really happening behind palace walls, hit subscribe. And if this breakdown gave you something to think about, drop a like. It genuinely helps this channel grow. Tell me in the comments, do you think Princess Anne is finally making her move? Or is the palace going to find a way to make this disappear? I'll see you in the next one.